A stranded rich woman reluctantly takes help from a black man, but when she repays him with a shocking gift, it doesn't just change his life, it transforms an entire community. By the end, you'll be shocked. The sun beat down mercilessly on the long stretch of highway. Maria Langford sat in her sleek black luxury car, gripping the steering wheel with mounting frustration. Her manicured nails tapped against the leather as beads of sweat formed on her brow. The engine had died 30 minutes ago, and her attempts to call for roadside assistance had failed. No signal. Maria was used to control. Born into wealth and the CEO of a multi-million-dollar real estate company, she rarely encountered situations she couldn't buy her way out of. But now, stranded miles from the nearest town, she felt utterly powerless. Her irritation turned to panic as a pickup truck approached in the distance, its engine rumbling. A tall man stepped out, his silhouette framed against the glaring sun. He was black, wearing a faded plaid shirt and worn work boots. Maria's heart raced, not from relief, but from fear. Stories of carjackings and robberies flooded her mind. The man approached her cautiously, his hand raised in a gesture of peace. "Need some help, ma'am?" he asked, his deep voice steady but kind. Maria hesitated, her pulse quickening. Everything in her upbringing told her not to trust him. Her eyes darted to the bag on the passenger seat containing cash and jewelry from her recent business trip. "No, I'm fine," she said curtly, her tone sharper than intended. The man paused, his eyes meeting hers. There was no hostility in his gaze, only a quiet determination. "Your car isn't going anywhere without a tow," he said, nodding toward the steam rising from the hood. "I can take a look if you want." Maria bit her lip, her pride and fear warring within her. She had no other options. With a reluctant nod, she gestured to the car. "Fine. Just be quick about it." The man rolled up his sleeves and got to work, his hands moving with practiced ease. Maria watched him from a distance, her arms crossed defensively. She noticed the wear on his boots, the grease stains on his jeans. He looked like he had worked hard all his life, a stark contrast to her own carefully curated world. "What's your name?" she asked, more to fill the silence than out of genuine interest. "Darnell," he replied without looking up. "Darnell Carter. And what do you do, Darnell?" "Mechanic. I run a little shop in town." Maria nodded stiffly, her unease slowly giving way to curiosity. As he tinkered under the hood, she found herself observing him more closely. Despite his rough appearance, there was a calm confidence in the way he moved. A quiet competence that made her feel strangely safe. After a few minutes, Darnell wiped his hands on a rag and closed the hood. "Your alternator's shot," he said. "You're not driving this anywhere today. I can give you a lift to town if you'd like." Maria stiffened at the offer, her guard shooting back up. "I'll wait for a tow," she said quickly. Darnell nodded, unfazed. "Suit yourself. But out here it might be hours before someone comes by." Maria hesitated again, the weight of her isolation pressing down on her. She hated the idea of relying on a stranger, but the thought of sitting alone in the heat for hours was worse. Finally, she relented. "Fine. Just to town." The ride was quiet at first, the hum of the truck's engine filling the silence. Maria stared out the window, her mind racing with thoughts of what she would tell her colleagues, how she could spin this humiliating situation into something less vulnerable. "Where are you headed?" Darnell asked, breaking the silence. "Back to New Haven," she replied. "I had a business meeting out here." Darnell nodded. "Must be nice. New Haven folks don't usually make their way down these roads." Maria felt the unspoken implication in his words. She glanced at him, seeing the faint smile on his lips. There was no malice there, only an understanding of the gulf that separated their lives. As they neared the town, Maria spotted small, run-down houses and modest storefronts. It was a world she had rarely seen up close, one that felt foreign and far removed from her polished life. When Darnell pulled up outside a diner, she hesitated before stepping out. "Thank you," she said awkwardly, her voice softer than before. Darnell tipped his cap. "You take care now, ma'am." Maria watched him drive away, a strange feeling stirring in her chest. For the first time, she wondered what his life was like. What kind of man would stop to help a stranger without expecting anything in return? As she sat in the diner, sipping a cup of coffee and waiting for a tow truck, Maria couldn't shake the image of Darnell's worn boots and calm smile. Something about the encounter unsettled her, not because of fear, but because it forced her to confront parts of herself she wasn't ready to see. Little did she know, the events set in motion that day would not only change Darnell's life, but unravel a truth about herself and her community that would leave her and everyone around her forever changed. Maria returned home to her sprawling estate later that evening, her mind still replaying the events of the day. She had barely stepped through the grand double doors when her assistant, Emily, rushed to her side, clipboard in hand. "Everything okay, Miss Langford? You missed your meeting this afternoon," Emily said, her voice tinged with concern. "I'm fine," Maria replied curtly, brushing past her toward the living room. The spacious, tastefully decorated space felt colder than usual, its modern art and designer furniture doing little to ease the strange unease gnawing at her. That night, Maria struggled to sleep. Darnell's calm demeanor and selflessness lingered in her thoughts. She had met countless people in her life, most of them motivated by money, status, or power. But Darnell, he hadn't asked for anything. He hadn't even accepted the cash she had nervously offered before leaving the diner. By morning, her curiosity had grown into a need she couldn't ignore. Maria was used to answers, used to resolving the unknown with a single phone call or a check. But this was different. This was personal. On impulse, she searched online for mechanics in the town Darnell had mentioned. After a few clicks, she found what she was looking for: Carter's Auto Repair. The website was simple, a single page with a phone number and a picture of Darnell standing in front of a modest garage. Before she could second-guess herself, Maria grabbed her keys and set off. An hour later, Maria pulled into the small parking lot of Carter's Auto Repair. The garage was a stark contrast to the sleek dealerships she was used to, a humble structure with peeling paint and a hand-painted sign. A few older cars sat outside, their hoods propped open as mechanics worked under the morning sun. Maria stepped out of her car, her heels clicking against the gravel. The sound drew the attention of a young boy sitting on a bench nearby. He couldn't have been older than 10. His clothes slightly oversized, and his face curious. "Are you looking for Mr. Carter?" he asked, tilting his head. "Yes," Maria replied, trying to ignore the growing lump in her throat. "Is he here?" The boy nodded and ran inside, shouting, "Darnell, there's a lady here to see you." A moment later, Darnell emerged, wiping his hands on a rag. His expression shifted from surprise to curiosity as he recognized Maria. "Miss Langford," he said, stepping closer. "Didn't expect to see you again. Everything okay with the car?" Maria hesitated, suddenly unsure of what to say. She had no reason to be there, no excuse beyond the gnawing guilt and curiosity she couldn't shake. "It's fine," she said, forcing a small smile. I wanted to thank you again." "Properly?" Darnell raised an eyebrow. "You already thanked me. Twice, if I recall." Maria glanced around, taking in the garage and its surroundings. The tools were well used, the cars old and in various states of disrepair. A few other mechanics worked nearby, their clothes and hands covered in grease. "This is your business?" she asked, gesturing toward the garage. "It is," Darnell replied. "Been running it for about 8 years now. It's not much, but it gets the job done." Maria nodded, her mind racing. She saw the pride in his posture, the way he spoke about his work. It was clear he cared deeply about what he did, even if the resources were limited. As they talked, a woman in her early 30s walked out from a side door. She carried a tray of sandwiches and bottles of water, handing them out to the workers. Her smile was warm, her movements quick and efficient. "That's my sister, Jasmine," Darnell explained, noticing Maria's gaze. "She helps out when she can." Jasmine waved at Maria, her curiosity evident. "Nice to meet you," she said, her tone friendly but cautious. Maria returned the wave, feeling increasingly out of place in her tailored dress and designer heels. She turned back to Darnell, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "Why didn't you take the money?" Darnell paused, his expression thoughtful. "Because that's not why I helped you," he said simply. "I wasn't looking for a reward. Sometimes people just need a little kindness." The honesty in his voice hit Maria like a wave. She was used to transactions, to deals and agreements where everyone got something in return. But this was different. She cleared her throat, suddenly feeling exposed. "Well, I'd like to return the favor. If there's anything you need, anything at all, please let me know." Darnell smiled faintly, shaking his head. "We're doing just fine, Miss Langford, but I appreciate the offer." Maria didn't press further. As she drove away, her thoughts churned with a mix of admiration and discomfort. Darnell's words stayed with her, challenging everything she thought she knew about giving, about value, and about herself. She had come to thank him, but she left feeling as though she were the one in debt. Little did she know, the idea forming in her mind during that drive would soon grow into something much bigger. Something that would not only repay Darnell's kindness, but also ripple through the lives of everyone around him. Maria couldn't get Darnell's words out of her mind. Sometimes people just need a little kindness. It was such a simple sentiment, yet it echoed in her thoughts, louder than any deal she had ever closed. For days, she mulled over her encounter with Darnell, replaying his selflessness and the modest pride he carried, despite his humble surroundings. Sitting in her expansive home office, Maria stared at her laptop, the cursor blinking on an empty document. She had intended to dive into her upcoming real estate project, but her focus kept drifting back to Darnell and his garage. She leaned back in her chair, scanning the room filled with accolades, framed degrees, and the trappings of success. It all felt hollow. For the first time, she realized how disconnected she was from the world outside her gated community. Darnell had shown her that value wasn't tied to wealth or status, but to the impact you had on others. And for the first time in her life, Maria wanted to make an impact. The question was, how? That afternoon, Maria made a phone call to her assistant, Emily. "Emily, I need you to research something for me," she began. "Of course, Ms. Langford. What's the project?" "It's not a project," Maria said, hesitating. "It's personal. There's a mechanic shop in town, Carter's Auto Repair. I need a detailed overview of their business, revenue, expenses, any permits or loans they've taken out, and find out what kind of support programs are available for small businesses in the area." Emily sounded surprised but professional as ever. "I'll get right on it. Anything else? Just keep this between us for now," Maria added. "And don't let them know we're looking into it." Maria hung up, her heart racing. She knew this wasn't something her peers or colleagues would understand. But deep down, she felt compelled to do something meaningful, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Over the next week, Maria dove into the details Emily gathered. The numbers confirmed what she had suspected. Carter's Auto Repair was operating on razor-thin margins. Darnell's income barely covered expenses, and there was little room for growth. The garage had potential, but it needed resources, better equipment, more employees, and a stronger customer base. Maria visited the garage again, this time unannounced. She stood at a distance, watching Darnell work. His hands moved deftly, his focus unwavering as he repaired an old truck. His sister, Jasmine, greeted customers with a warm smile, jotting down their concerns in a well-worn notebook. The entire operation was held together by sheer determination. When Darnell noticed her, his brow furrowed in confusion, before breaking into a friendly smile. "Back again, Miss Langford." Maria walked up, her heart thumping. "I need to talk to you. Do you have a moment?" He wiped his hands on a rag and gestured toward a bench under a tree nearby. "Sure. What's on your mind?" Maria hesitated, unsure how to begin. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about kindness, and about how you helped me when you didn't have to." Darnell leaned back, crossing his arms. "Like I said, it wasn't a big deal. It was to me," Maria insisted. "And I want to give something back, not just to you, but to this business and this community." Darnell frowned slightly, his tone cautious. "What are you saying?" Maria took a deep breath. "I want to invest in your garage. No strings attached. I'll provide the funds to upgrade your equipment, hire more staff, and expand your operations. And I don't just mean money. I'll help with marketing, networking, whatever you need to grow this place into something even bigger." Darnell stared at her, stunned. "Why would you do that? You don't owe me anything." Maria smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I owe myself the chance to do something that matters. And this? Helping someone like you build something incredible? That matters to me." Jasmine walked over, sensing the tension. "Everything okay?" Darnell turned to her, still processing. "Ms. Langford here wants to invest in the garage. Help us grow." Jasmine's eyes widened. "Wait, really?" Maria nodded. "I know it sounds sudden, but I mean it. You have something special here, a sense of community, integrity. I want to support that." Darnell rubbed the back of his neck, clearly overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Jasmine interjected, her voice filled with excitement. After a long pause, Darnell met Maria's gaze. "If I agree, it's not just about the money. I want to make sure this stays true to what it is, a place where people feel welcome, no matter who they are." Maria nodded. That's exactly what I want too. Darnell extended his hand, and Maria shook it firmly. In that moment, the partnership was sealed, not just between two people, but between two worlds that rarely intersected. As Maria drove home, she felt a strange lightness in her chest. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about profits or accolades. She was thinking about purpose, and how one small act of kindness on a roadside had set off a chain of events that was only just beginning. The next few weeks brought a whirlwind of change to Carter's auto repair and to Darnell's life. True to her word, Maria committed not only her resources, but also her time. She visited the garage regularly, meeting with Darnell and Jasmine to discuss plans for the business. Together, they mapped out a vision that would take the humble shop from barely getting by to becoming a cornerstone of the community. Darnell was skeptical at first. He had spent his life working hard, often in the face of judgment and dismissal from those who looked like Maria. Accepting her help felt like a gamble, but he couldn't deny the hope that began to stir within him. For Jasmine, it was a dream come true. She had always believed in her brother's talent, and now they finally had the chance to show the world what they could do. Maria brought in contractors to renovate the garage, giving it a much-needed facelift. The peeling paint was replaced with a vibrant blue, and a new sign proudly displayed the name Carter's Auto Repair, a family business. Inside, the once cramped workspace was reorganized and equipped with state-of-the-art tools. The team expanded, with Darnell hiring 2 young apprentices from the community who had always admired his work. For Darnell, the changes weren't just cosmetic. Maria introduced him to marketing strategies and social media, creating a website and online presence for the garage. She even called in favors from her own network, bringing in a steady stream of new clients. Word spread quickly. Here was a garage that not only did exceptional work, but also treated every customer with respect and care. The community rallied around Carter's auto repair in a way no one had expected. Longtime residents who had been skeptical of Maria's intentions began to see her in a new light. She wasn't just a wealthy outsider trying to fix something for her own benefit. She was genuinely invested in the people. One afternoon, as the renovations neared completion, Maria arrived at the garage with a tray of coffees. She found Darnell under the hood of an old car, his sleeves rolled up and his face streaked with grease. "Busy day?" she asked, handing him a cup. He smiled, wiping his hands before taking it. "Always. But it's a good busy." They sat on a bench outside, the sound of tools and laughter filling the air behind them. "You know," Darnell began, his tone thoughtful, "when you first showed up, I didn't know what to make of you. I thought you were just another rich lady looking for a tax write-off or something." Maria laughed softly, nodding. "I don't blame you. I've probably given off that impression more times than I'd like to admit." Darnell looked at her, his expression serious. "But I was wrong. You didn't just throw money at this place. You cared. That means something." Maria felt a lump form in her throat. "I care because you showed me what real generosity looks like. You didn't know me, and you had every reason not to stop that day. But you did. You taught me that kindness isn't about what you have. It's about what you give." Darnell nodded, his gaze drifting to the bustling garage. "I guess we both learned something, huh?" Maria smiled. "I guess we did." As the garage flourished, so did its impact on the community. Darnell and Jasmine began hosting free car maintenance workshops for local teenagers, teaching them basic skills and offering a safe space to learn. Maria funded scholarships for 2 of the apprentices, helping them pursue formal training in automotive engineering. But the most memorable moment came during the grand reopening of Carter's Auto Repair. Maria insisted on holding a community event to celebrate the garage's transformation. The once empty parking lot was filled with food trucks, music, and families from all over town. Maria stood on the stage next to Darnell, a microphone in hand. She addressed the crowd, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "When I met Darnell, I was stranded on the side of the road. Literally and in many ways. Figuratively," she said. "His kindness reminded me of something I had forgotten. The power of helping others without expecting anything in return. Today isn't just about a garage. It's about what happens when we come together, when we break down barriers and build something stronger." Darnell took the microphone, his voice resonating with quiet strength. "This garage has always been about family, and now it feels like our family's gotten a whole lot bigger. Thank you all for believing in us. And thank you, Maria, for helping us dream bigger than we ever thought we could." The crowd erupted into cheers, and for the first time in years, Maria felt something deeper than pride. She felt connected. As the sun set on the celebration, Darnell, Jasmine, and Maria stood together, watching children play and neighbors laugh. The barriers that once seemed so unbreakable now felt like distant memories. But little did they know, this was only the beginning. The ripple effects of their partnership would soon reach far beyond the garage, transforming lives in ways no one could have predicted. Weeks turned into months, and the success of Carter's auto repair continued to grow. Darnell's once humble garage had become more than just a place to fix cars. It was a symbol of hope and unity in a community that had often felt overlooked. But the impact of Maria's support didn't stop at the garage's walls. It began to ripple out in ways no one had anticipated. Inspired by Darnell's story, other small business owners in the area started to believe in the possibility of growth. Maria helped establish a grant program funded by her own foundation, providing financial assistance and mentorship to struggling businesses. Local bakeries, convenience stores, and even a small daycare began to flourish, all connected by a shared sense of opportunity. One of the most remarkable transformations came from the two apprentices Maria and Darnell had hired during the garage's expansion. Jamal, a quiet teenager who had struggled to stay out of trouble, found purpose working alongside Darnell. Under Darnell's guidance, Jamal discovered a talent for repairing engines and an ambition he never knew he had. "Mr. Carter taught me more than just fixing cars," Jamal said during a community event. "He taught me how to believe in myself." The second apprentice, Lisa, became a trailblazer in her own right. The passion for engineering grew under Darnell's mentorship, and Maria helped her secure a scholarship to a prestigious technical school. Lisa often returned to the garage, speaking to local girls about pursuing careers in fields where they were often underrepresented. For Maria, the journey transformed her in ways she never imagined. She had spent her life building walls, protecting herself from vulnerability, keeping people at a distance, but working with Darnell and his family had torn those walls down, brick by brick. One evening, Maria stood outside the garage, watching Darnell teach a group of teens how to change a tire. Jasmine sat nearby, chatting with a customer who had become a friend. Laughter and camaraderie in the air felt so different from the sterile environments Maria had known. "You're quiet tonight," Darnell said, walking over and handing her a cup of coffee. Maria smiled. "Just taking it all in. It's amazing what you've built here." "What we've built," Darnell corrected. "This never would have happened without you." Maria shook her head. "You give me too much credit. All I did was open a door. You walked through it and built something incredible." Darnell's voice softened. "It's not just about the garage, Maria. You gave this community something we'd been missing for a long time. Hope." Maria felt tears sting her eyes. For so long, she had defined herself by her success, her wealth, her reputation. But here, in this small garage with these people, she had found something far more meaningful. News of the garage's transformation began to spread. Local media picked up the story, framing it as a testament to what could happen when people from different worlds came together. Darnell and Maria were invited to speak at community events, sharing their journey of partnership and growth. But the most surprising moment came when a national magazine featured the story on its cover, calling it a roadside rescue that transformed a town. The article highlighted not just the garage's success, but also the larger impact on the community. Maria initially hesitated to participate in the interviews, wary of seeming self-congratulatory, but Darnell convinced her otherwise. "People need to hear this," he said. "They need to know that change is possible." The article brought an influx of donations and resources to the town, enabling further growth and development. A once-forgotten community was now thriving, and it all stemmed from a single moment of kindness on a lonely stretch of road. Months later, Maria stood in her office, staring at a blank space on the wall. She had cleared it of her many awards and plaques, feeling they no longer represented what she truly valued. In their place, she hung a framed photograph taken during the garage's grand reopening. In the photo, Maria stood beside Darnell and Jasmine, surrounded by a smiling crowd. Children held balloons, apprentices showed off their tools, and the garage shone with new life. It wasn't just a picture, it was a reminder of everything she had learned. She no longer saw herself as someone who simply gave to others. She saw herself as part of something bigger, a shared effort to build a better future. One sunny afternoon, Maria received a letter from Darnell. Inside was a single sentence scrawled in his familiar handwriting. You gave me the tools to fix my garage, but you also gave me the courage to dream bigger. Attached to the letter was a flyer for a new project, Carter's Community Center, set to open the following year. The center would offer free workshops, mentoring programs, and a safe space for local youth. A dream Darnell had long kept to himself, but now had the resources to make real. Maria smiled as she read the flyer. She realized that this wasn't the end of their story. The partnership that began with a broken-down car had grown into a movement, a testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and the courage to believe in one another. And as she folded the letter, Maria knew one thing for certain: her life had been changed just as much as Darnell's.